Hello everyone, I'm Thin. Tran Phuong Thin. I'm 42 years old this year, and today I want to share something a little different from my usual videos about personal growth. I want to talk about my real life, the one that happens off camera, between the cities I travel to and the home I don't get to see enough. I have a wife and 3 children. Being the only one who earns for the family, I've had to learn to go wherever the work is. This month, I might be in Ho Chi Minh City. Next month, Dong Nai. After that, maybe Phu Quoc or Hanoi or Da Nang. My suitcase has probably seen more of this country than most people's vacations. By training, I'm an electrical engineer. That's the paper on my wall. But paper doesn't pay school fees or hospital bills on its own, so over the years, I've done almost anything that would let me provide. I've managed construction sites, standing under the sun, making sure a building goes up the right way. I've worked as a QS for aluminum and glass projects, going over numbers and materials until they're exact. I've sat at a real estate floor as a manager, talking to people about the biggest purchase of their lives. I've even worked as a marketing manager for a beauty salon, a job I never imagined for an engineer, but one that taught me people are people, no matter the industry. If there's one thing I'm good at, it's this. Wherever I go, I find a way to bring value quickly. I don't need months to understand a business. Give me a few weeks, and I'll find where the profit is hiding. That's probably the one constant skill that's followed me through every job title I've had. The trips that were never smooth. Let me tell you about a night I don't usually talk about. I was driving from Ho Chi Minh City to a construction site in Dong Nai, alone, around 11 at night, because the client needed me on site before a morning inspection. Halfway there, the sky opened up. One of those sudden tropical downpours where you can't see 3 meters ahead. The road turned into a shallow river. My car's engine cut out in the middle of a flooded underpass, water creeping up past the door seal. I remember sitting there in the dark, phone at 8% battery, calculating whether to wait it out or wade through water I couldn't see the bottom of, in a city where I knew no one. I ended up wading out, leaving the car and knocking on the shutter of a closed repair shop until someone woke up and let me wait inside until dawn. I made the inspection the next morning, soaked shoes and all, and nobody on site ever knew what it took to get me there. That's the part people don't see. You show up composed, on time, ready to talk numbers, and behind you, there's a car half submerged in a flooded underpass and a night spent sitting on a stranger's floor. There was another time, during my QS days on an aluminum and glass project, when a supplier tried to slip in a shipment with thinner grade glass than what was quoted, hoping no one would measure closely enough before the invoice got signed off. I caught it because I happened to bring calipers that day, almost out of habit. What followed was a tense, hours-long standoff in a site office with 3 people raising their voices, a contract on the table, and a very real risk that if I backed down, either the building went up with substandard material or I personally absorbed the cost difference to keep the project moving. I didn't back down, but I remember driving back to my rented room that night with my hands still not quite steady on the wheel. And then there was the phone call every parent dreads. I was in the middle of closing a real estate deal in Phu Quoc, the kind of deal that would cover school fees for a whole year, when my wife called to say our youngest had a high fever and wasn't responding to the medicine, and she was taking him to the emergency room alone. I was on an island. The next flight back wasn't for 6 hours. I sat in the airport, staring at a departure board, torn between walking away from a signature that was 30 minutes from happening and getting on a boat, then a flight, then a taxi, to a hospital hallway 400 kilometers away. I finished the call, closed the deal in 20 minutes flat, with my hands shaking, and spent the entire flight home not knowing if my son was okay. He was fine, in the end. A bad flu, nothing more. But I remember landing, running through the airport, and reaching the hospital room to find my wife asleep in a plastic chair, still in the clothes she'd left the house in that morning, and my son hooked up to an IV, finally sleeping peacefully. I stood in that doorway for a long moment before either of them noticed me. That image of everything I was building for them happening while I was somewhere else entirely is something I carry every time I board a flight or start the car for another city. These are the moments that never make it into a highlight reel. The flooded car, the standoff over a shipment of glass, the flight I almost missed, and the one I almost didn't take. They don't look dramatic in a thumbnail, but they're the real cost of the life I chose. And I think it's only fair that you see that side too, not just the calm voice I use when I talk about personal growth. And then there's this channel. Under my own name, Tran Phuong Thin, I make videos about personal development and post daily vlogs about ordinary life. It's not my main income, but it's become something I care about. A place where I can be honest, where the version of me that's tired from 3 different jobs in 3 different provinces gets to just talk, unfiltered. But I want to be honest with you today about the part that doesn't show up in the highlight reels. My children get sick sometimes, the way all children do, a fever, a cough, a hospital visit, and I'm not always there. I'm in another city, finishing a project, closing a deal, filming a video, trying to make sure there's enough for the next semester's tuition. I hear about it over the phone, and there's a particular kind of helplessness in hearing your child cry when you're 400 kilometers away. And there are nights, in whatever hotel room or rented space I'm staying in that week, when the work is done, the camera is off, and it's just me. That's when the loneliness comes. Not the kind you can complain about to anyone, because on paper, I'm doing fine. Good jobs, steady income, a growing channel. But providing for a family from a distance means missing the small things. A meal together, a bedtime story, an ordinary Tuesday. Whenever sadness catches up with me, I don't really know how to just rest. Instead of sitting still, I get in the car and drive to some of the most beautiful projects around. Aqua City, Vin Homes Kangio, Sunset Vu Quoc, and I bring my camera. I tell myself I'm going there to film content, to release the stress. But honestly, walking through a half-finished, beautifully planned project does something for me that sitting at home never could. And more often than not, between filming, I end up talking to someone, an investor, a broker, a stranger who's curious about the camera. And a conversation turns into a potential partnership. I suppose that's just who I am. Even my way of coping with sadness somehow turns into another door opening for work. I don't say this for sympathy. I say it because I think a lot of fathers out there are living some version of this, moving between cities, switching industries, doing whatever needs to be done, quietly carrying a kind of exhaustion that doesn't photograph well. What keeps me going is simple. I think about my wife holding things together at home, and my 3 children growing up a little each time I come back. I think about the version of our life where I've built enough stability, enough savings, enough presence that I don't have to keep choosing between being there and being able to provide. Until then, I keep moving. Ho Chi Minh City this week. somewhere else the next. And in between, I keep making these videos because putting this into words helps me carry it, and maybe it helps someone watching carry theirs too. To everyone who watches, comments, or supports this channel, thank you. You're part of why I keep showing up, in front of the camera and everywhere else I have to be. I'll see you in the next video. Tran Phuong Thin.